It's time for the UNX News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the UNX News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. And we're here every Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time. So if you miss an episode, though, you can always watch it on YouTube. And that goes for all of our channels and all of our shows that are on YouTube. You can watch them anytime. Want to mention just a couple of things. Right now, we're having a paranormal contest, a best paranormal photo contest. So if you'd like to get in on that, go to unxnetwork.com and take a look at the rules and then submit your photo. It has to be something that you took yourself. And so we're going to have some winners announced at right at the beginning of August, because it ends July 31st. And we also came out earlier this month with the July issue of UNX Magazine. It's got a lot of great articles in it, and there are some articles by some of our hosts on our shows right here at the network. So don't miss that one. Check that out at unxnetwork.com. And then also my latest book is one that I collaborated with Debbie Ziegelmeyer on. It's called The 50th Anniversary of the Southeast Missouri Ozarks UFO Flap. And this is about the big 1973 UFO flap that happened in that neck of the woods. And in fact, that went across the United States. But Piedmont in particular made national news. So check that out as well. My guest this evening is Ella LeBain. She's a native of New York City and was educated in Israel, where she received a social sciences degree from the Biological Research Center of the Negev in 1979. It's a department of Ben Gurion University. At that school, she was educated in biblical Hebrew and science. Returning to New York City, Ella then went on to receive an astronomy degree from the Hayden Planetarium in 1988, where she began her serious study of cosmology. Ella became a student of Zechariah Sitchin's International Bible Study Group. She also has extensively studied alien abductions and other paranormal activities. Welcome to the program, Ella.
Thank you for having me, Margie.
Well, thank you so much. I know you're a busy lady, because it seems that you have written a series of 5 books, and we will definitely get into that, because I don't know very many people who write book series. And so I would imagine that has to be something that's planned for in advance. But I'd like to ask you, how did you get interested in extraterrestrials?
Well, I'm a lifelong experiencer / abductee since the age of 2. And I was always questioning what I was seeing as a child. And I lost my mother when I was 6, and then my father when I was 15. So I was kind of put out there, and I had a lot of questions of what was going on and why I had these experiences late at night. And one thing led to another, and I ended up in Israel, as you read my bio. And that was when I first started seeing craft. I lived in the Negev desert, which was miles away from any city, no lights, and it was in the 70s. So there weren't that many satellites up above the earth at that time. There were some, but not as many as we have now. Mm-hmm. And my girlfriend and I used to just go out at night and watch the spaceships. That's what we called them. And we used to see them kick up a lot of dust in the Israeli desert. and on, bluebird sky, not a cloud in the sky, all of a sudden all this dust would get kicked up and we would end up in this like sandstorm, but it wasn't a weather related event. So I had a lot of questions about all of that. And long story short, ended up in South Africa after I went after Israel, and I had a lot of supernatural experiences there. Right before I was waiting for my visa, right before I left for South Africa in Israel, in the broad daylight, I saw this being come out of the sunlight on the ground and appear to me. And he said, "I am the Messiah, follow me." So I was raised Jewish, and Jews are taught not to believe in Christ or Jesus. But I found out that his name was Yeshua, and he persisted in my life. So he showed up for me multiple times along my timeline. And fast forward 2010, I had a near-death experience here in Colorado, and I saw both my parents who were deceased. And then I had someone who took my hand, and it was Yeshua. And we walked together on this green field with the blue bird sky, just the two of us. And he told me, I was going to be okay, but he wanted me to rewrite my book with him in it. And at the time, I hadn't published yet, and I was writing a book about the ETs and the aliens, and so I did. It took me about 2 years after that to get published and to heal, because I went through a lot of healing experiences. And as a child, I had my parents used to talk about this a lot. So this was a memory that was kept alive through, talking about it, not through hypnosis. But they used to find me upside down in my crib with nosebleeds. And I always had this little BB-sized nodule in my right nostril. And I suffered all my childhood with allergies. I would pass out at the sight of a needle. I had literally needle phobia until I was 25. And I actually volunteered into this program to get free of that. Long story short, after my near-death experience, the implant that I believe was in my right nostril disappeared. All my allergies were completely healed, and I don't have the needle phobia anymore. I and I used to get the sleep paralysis. I don't get that anymore. So I feel like I've been delivered, completely free, healed of all of that. That was very sort of weighing me down. So it freed me up to write and research. And so it's turned into 6 books. The 6th book should be out by the new year.
Okay, well, that is an amazing story. And I know we've only touched the tip of the iceberg with you. I wonder so has this Yeshua, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Has he been in touch with you since? Is he still today in touch with you?
Oh, yes. I talk to him all the time.
Okay. And does he give you guidance with the books or suggestions?
Yes. It's an ongoing relationship.
Interesting, to say the least. Now, you also you interviewed Zechariah Sitchin. I'd be interested to know what that was about and how you became a student of his.
Well, so in 1995, I was living in Indian Rocks Beach in Florida, which was the Gulf of Mexico, that side, the west coast of Florida.
Mhm.
So I used to go to the beach every night and watch the sunset. And I'm just going to sidestep the question just for a second and tell you how I led into that. And I saw this craft come out of the ocean in April of 1995. And that night, the local, I wasn't a member of MUFON at the time, I am now, but that night, the local MUFON received 350 calls of people who saw that same craft from the beaches along, from different angles.
Oh.
And I was invited. It's just like everything seemed to happen all at once. That was like a paradigm shift. I've never seen, like, I was gobsmacked. It was like, what is this doing coming out of the ocean? At first, I thought it was a pod of dolphins, and then I see metallics, and then it's just right. This was after sunset, so it was, the light was just coming from the beach. There wasn't any, and the stars were out. And I heard all this rumbling sounds and a lot of swishing and water, and all this foam was coming off of it. And then it just shot up into the sky like in a New York second, and it became like a star. And I saw it sort of like go into, it looked like it had created some portal, and it just disappeared. That was it.
Wow.
So that woke me up. And I ended up going to this, I was invited to this because I was telling a friend about it who was a member of MUFON. They invited me to this conference. I thought I wanted to be a reporter back then. So I was doing interviews, collecting interviews, and they invited me to this one-of-a-kind conference in Washington, D.C., which was called When Cosmic Cultures Meet. And that's where I met Zecharia Sitchin. And he agreed to give me an interview. He was there with his wife, Rena, and it was just very, informal. And we sat around on the couch and just talked for a while. And we found out we had all these things in common from our heritage and our past in Israel and Hebrew and all of that. So that sort of started me to follow him and, read all his books. And then he had this international Bible study, which I joined, and he came to Colorado 3 times. So I've been living here since 1996. So he would come here and do talks. So I got to see him 3 more times before he passed. And he passed in January of 2010. And that was the month before I had my near-death experience. So I feel like I downloaded a whole lot of stuff from that. And one of the things that was very clear and prominent in the what I call marching orders that I got, from Yeshua, was that he was returning. This was the message he wanted me to be clear to give to people, that he was returning with Nibiru.
Oh, really?
Yes. So that's when I started connecting the dots to Zecharia Sitchin's research about Nibiru. And then, all the stuff, because, when you're learning things, it's like, oh, you get a piece here and a piece there. And then it started to all come together and make sense. And so it's taken me 12, 13 years to process all the downloads I got and publish it in the book series. So I wasn't the intention wasn't to write a book series, but it's turned into that.
So when is Nibiru going to return or be within our solar system?
Well, there's a 2-part answer, a several-part answer to that question. First of all, it's already here. The system is here. So I call it the Nemesis Nibiru system, because Nibiru is one of the planets around our binary twin, which we call Nemesis, which is a brown dwarf star. And so this is something that, as a child, I used to go up on the roof and think, gee, I wonder what it would be like if there was another Earth just like ours. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like that was what I was led to, that material. And, all the material that he published about what was literally written in stone by the ancient Sumerians about this planet and about the beings that came from this planet, and this whole drama, this whole cosmic drama that went on, that we are still in many respects working out and resolving. So the return of Nibiru is going to be like a major click on the dial, but it's a system, suffice to say, it's a system with 7 planets. So we are already seeing some of its sister planets and moons. Nibiru itself has not arrived yet, but it's come into our solar system. Everything seems to enter through the Oort cloud. So the Chilean astronomer Carlos Muñoz Ferrada, he called it the comet planet because it has tails. And it's interesting to compare that to what the ancients depicted in their stone carvings. The Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Persians, they always had this red disk with these wings. And
yes,
and that's Nibiru. They worship this red star, and that's Nibiru. And then I found it in the Torah, and I found it in the Zohar, and in the ancient, the Zohar is the Jewish companion to the Torah. You know, that was kind of like written by all the rabbis, and they call it the Messianic star. They believe that when they see this red star, they call it, or red whatever, coming out of the sky, it's a harbinger for the coming of the Messiah. So, you know, I started connecting all these dots and to what I was told as well. And I got, you know, felt confirmation, and I just kind of went with it. And it's all published in my 5th book, The Heavens. Like everything I just said, all the research is all there. People can look it up.
Well, I've read all of Sitchin's books as well.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I'm just fascinated, always been fascinated by what he had to say. And I think that a few people try to debunk him, but I think they've given up on that because other people, you know, set him straight. So, yeah, I mean, he's studied the ancient Sumerian tablets and you know, a lot of stone carvings, you know, to tell the entire story. But some people have been, and this happened to me once too. They see a second sun. And I saw a second sun next to our own sun at sunset one time, and it was much smaller, you know, probably about a fourth of the size of the sun. And then it wasn't there anymore. And I know, and other people have, and they've gotten pictures of it. What is that all about? Do you know?
Yes. Well, and what year was that you saw that? I'm just.
That was last year.
Last year. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've been seeing this since like 2003. So what happens is it's a number of different things. Sometimes Nemesis itself, which is this brown dwarf star, is a dead star. It doesn't radiate anymore. It doesn't give out light. But just like our sun illuminates all the other planets in our solar system, and it shines, like when it shines on Venus, it makes Venus look really bright. So when our sun illuminates Nemesis, the brown dwarf, it looks like a second sun. It gives it light.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's all about timing and angles. So you're lucky to have caught it. And also location. We notice that people who live in the south or closer below the equator even, or anyone in the southern hemisphere has a much better viewing of it than people up north. And also sunrise and sunset. Those are the best times to catch it if it happens to be around the sun. Now, that's just to say, like, because it does this cycle thing. It's like a dance, you know, the two stars go back and forth, and sometimes you don't see it at all because it's right behind our sun. And also our sun is so much bigger, so it completely obfuscates it with its light and its largeness. And then what else is happening is that it has other planets. There are other exoplanets that have come in that are intersecting in our solar system and are around our sun. So sometimes when people see these two and it looks like two suns, it could be our sun illuminating one of its exoplanets, especially if it's small, as you described. So we're seeing stuff all the time, and you know what's really exciting is that we're seeing it in these space telescopes. So the SOHO and the LASCO coronagraph space telescopes and GOES and you know they're all there's almost over a dozen of them that are up there focused on the sun from one angle to another. And you know they're studying the sunspots, they're studying the solar flares, the coronal message. I mean, this is how we get our solar weather every day, from these space telescopes. And we're seeing these planets there. And it's like, you know, we look at them. I post them a lot, so people could go to my page. They can even go and look at the albums, you know, Signs in the Heavens and the exoplanets. And I post these pictures because sometimes, you know, we look at it and we go, is that a planet or is that a spaceship? Because spaceships are also spherical. And we've seen almost like plasma exchanges between these two objects, like in videos. And this is all public information. You can go to NASA's sites and harvest these videos and photos yourself. This is not hidden stuff. But sometimes, to be fair, they do blackouts, because sometimes we get like a fleet of ships. And they don't want people seeing that. And then all of a sudden it's blacked out, and then everything's on the next day. So it's kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, it is. I know some people who keep an eye on that all the time, 24 hours a day. And if they see something, they record it real quick, because it's probably going to be gone later.
Yes, timing is everything.
Yeah, it sure is. So in your contact with ETs, there are two camps of people. There's one that all ETs are bad, and the other one is they're all good. Do you have an idea about what the truth is about this?
Well, the truth is always in the middle ground when it comes to the extreme viewpoints. And in my opinion, and what I've published, is that it's a mixture of both. Just like us, as above, so below. Just like us, Earth humans, we have good humans and we have evil humans. And there's good ETs and bad ETs, and good aliens and bad aliens. I will say, because I started my fourth book off with these words, is that not all aliens are demons, but all demons are aliens.
Okay, I get that.
Okay, so and you know, being raised Jewish, there's, you know, I've dealt with a lot of racism, anti-Semitism. I lived in South Africa for 2 years, so I was inspired to write book 4, Covenants, which was my humble attempt to lance the boils of racism and anti-Semitism. And I noticed that there was like a new level of this type of bigotry when it comes to extraterrestrials and aliens. Now, that's not to say that it's not justified that there isn't a group of aliens that are using us, okay? And they're not benevolent, and they don't have our intentions, best intentions, and they've been holding us down. And this is something I proved through the research, through Sitchin's research as well, because one of the things that he proved was that the ancient the Anunnaki, he called them, the ancient Sumerians, genetically manipulated humankind. So, and then this sort of false belief got birthed out of his people's misinterpretation of his books, was that, oh, the Anunnaki created humans. And that's not entirely true. Okay, so I basically unpack what's going on there based on the Genesis account of creation, which is in its plurality. So I totally agree with Sitchin there, especially when it comes to discerning the Hebrew language. And in Genesis 3, the creation sentence, let us make man in our image according to our likeness, is in plurality.
Yes.
And the word in Hebrew is Elohim, which is a plural term for gods with an S at the end. And I noticed that the whole English Bible of the Old Testament doesn't have that. It's missing completely. And it uses the words Lord and God. That's it. And Lord and God are not names. They're titles like king or president. So when I went and I started researching every place where it said Lord and every place where it said God, I started to find, wait a second, it's not even singular. This is plurality, especially the word God should be written gods because it's Elohim. And I prove this with Hebrew linguistics, okay, that for instance, in Job 1 and Job 2, the sentence is, the B'nai Ha-Elohim, which means the sons of the gods, all plural, went up to the courts of heaven to basically attack Job in front of the Lord, and Satan was among them, which meant that he was grouped with them. Okay, so this shed a whole this is a whole different story, because there's a whole cast of characters in the Old Testament that is missing in the English Bible, and it's missing in the understanding of who God is. So I unpacked that in my second book, Who is God? Because what's in a name? A lot. Your identity is all in a name, and if your name is not being revealed, then how do you know who you're talking to? And this also explains why so many people don't believe in God, or they fall away from, even, I was raised Jewish. There's a lot of Jews that question who God is. There's a lot of Christians who leave the church because they're like, what? This doesn't make any sense. How could God say one thing and then in the next sentence do the opposite? Well, the answer is it's not the same God. Okay, there was a conflict, a drama that was played out in the Old Testament that has not been properly translated in English. So that's why a lot of people who read it in English don't get that.
Right. Fascinating stuff. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more with Ella LeBain. This is Margie Kay, inviting you to check out the latest edition of Onyx News Magazine with thought-provoking articles about UFOs, extraterrestrials, cryptids, consciousness, and amazing photos of anomalous objects and more. And there's always a feature article by our managing editor, Lee Spiegel. Get a free digital issue with your free subscription to the Onyx Network, or get a printed copy with your X Club Gold subscription in the U.S. Visit onyxnetwork.com to see details. That's onyxnetwork.com. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out, or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. And we're back with the Next News. I'm your host, Margie Kay, and I'm talking this evening with Ella LeBain. And we are talking about several of her books. We just showed during that segment one of your trailers for your books, which was very well done, by the way. And so let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about each of your books. I've got some photos here. So that's book one. What is that about?
Well, I'm very excited to announce that this book is finally going to come under my imprint. There's a whole long story, what I went through to publish this book. It went through 3 publishers. I finally went on my own, and I'm republishing it as a expanded, revised 4th edition. It should be available in August. It is basically discerning who the ETs are, who the aliens are, what the alien threat is all about. How does this drip disclosure era, where does it, what does it do? Where is it going to lead, and how it connects with the End Time Prophecies. So I'm connecting dots.
Okay, that's a lot in there. I imagine you covered this in that book, so I'm going to ask you, what about the hybridization program? Is there a hybrid program, and who's doing it?
Oh, wow. Yes. Well, that was my experience as an abductee, that I was used in that. Abductees are part of multiple programs. Not everyone who gets abducted is in the same program, but that is a specific program. And so the grays, a lot of people focus on the grays because they're the ones that show up during the abductions, but they're not necessarily the ones who are orchestrating it. They are not the puppet masters. The Draco reptilians are. So I am offering a lot of material in this new edition proving that they are the ones behind the abductions. The grays are used. Grays are like cybergenetic beings. They're hybrids themselves. A lot of them are a mixture of artificial intelligence and some other type of genetic that's mixed with reptilian, insectoid, even human. Okay, because that's what they do during the abductions, is that they are taking human eggs, human sperm, and human skin. Okay, plus I'm sure you know about the cattle mutilations, and they basically gore out these animals for the blood, and they're using this in laboratories, and some of them actually feed off of it. I have in my first book the 35 different types of gray species, and I spell it Gray to distinguish between the color Grey, because not all grays are gray. Some of them are beige, tan, white, black, navy, and metallic looking, where they almost look like ants, like insects. And they have this hive mind mentality, which, I have some stories that I've included in the book, that people who have had contact with them, where they sort of resisted what they were doing, and they went after them. And this one woman went after their eye and ended up breaking it, and seeing that what was behind those big black buggy eyes was like a television screen, and underneath it was just all this electronics. Okay, so they're a little sort of robotoids. So they're programmed to go and do, they're like servants, and they're not the ones pulling the strings, And then there was another story where someone they said, like this guy in Texas wanted to stop him, so he basically kind of did this sort of reversal on him, and he said, if you don't put me down, my God is going to blow up your ship. That's the only thing that came to his head. and it stopped the abductions. And we've seen that people using the name Jesus also, like, they don't know what to do, they just drop you. So this is very interesting to me because it plays right into the fact that this is part of a spiritual battle over humans, and that, like it says in Isaiah 61, I have come to set the captives free. That Yeshua reiterated those very words in his famous reading at the synagogue on that Sabbath, which is in the book of Luke, where he was reading that, and he said, "Today this prophecy is fulfilled." So, what does that mean? I questioned this all my life. Who are the captives? And the answer is that would be us, all of us, every one of the earth humans, surface humans, are held captive in this matrix, so to speak, in this system of things. And I call it the alien presence because they coexist with us. We've never been alone. Some people call them visitors, like they've come from outer space or from another, and I'm not denying that they don't have interstellar travel, or that's not, but they have been living here on this planet, coexisting with us underground. They're under the oceans. They're under these mountains. They're in the caverns of the earth. There's several civilizations, multiple civilizations. We've seen, all of my experiences seem to have come from seeing something come out of the earth. Okay, so like in the Israeli desert and in the Gulf of Mexico, and then even here in Colorado. When I moved here in 1996, we went down to Crestone. And Crestone is right near the sand dunes. And I went with a group called Healers on Wheels, from Arizona, and we went to go watch the lights. And we saw the lights coming and going in and out of the sand dunes. And you can actually see the lights in the sand dunes. So there's something going on underground. So,
sure.
And then I was like, okay, so this is happening. So where does it say so in the Bible? This is the connecting dot for the prophecies, and why this is relevant now is because the End Time Prophecy has multiple scriptures that relate to different creatures coming out of the earth. The beast coming out of the sea, the beast coming out of the land. Other creatures are described with like heads of a locust, tails of a scorpion, sent out to punish humankind, but leave the grass alone. I mean, this is very bizarre stuff that's written in the book of Revelation. So it's like science fiction, and you can't make this stuff up. So it's like, I don't believe that these were visions or hallucinations. I think these were very specific visions that were showing something that was going to happen, and that these creatures live inside the earth. So why do they look like that? Because they're hybrids, because they've been hybridizing different species for millennia. This was what went on in Atlantis. So I'm of the belief that there were two floods, because the very first scripture, Genesis 1:1, starts off with the end of the first flood, where, and the Spirit was hovering over the waters, and then they recreated the earth again. And that was the beginning before Noah's flood. And all those people lived to be like 900, 960. So we know that there was a different set of DNA going on in Homo sapiens back then. Sure. Then the second flood happened with Noah. And after that, nobody lived past 120. So there's been genetic manipulation. And this is, like people call it the fall of man because of the curses that were doled out in the book of Genesis. Man was cursed, woman was cursed, the earth was cursed. And not to say that that isn't true, it is, but it wasn't just that. It was a downgrading of our DNA. So there's 77 Jewish books that got rejected out of the Bible, but two of them I think are like so important, because if they were in the Bible, everyone would have a whole different understanding of this ongoing battle between us, the Lord, the angels, and who we call Satan. So to take the religious connotation out of that, because people think Satan is one being. Satan in Hebrew means adversary or rebel. So in my book, I always put it with a small s, okay, because nobody really knows his real name. Okay, I call him Lucifer Satan, but there's a lot of Satans, there's a lot of rebels, there's a lot of adversaries. It's a whole kingdom of them, and I basically delineate and distinguish between the clash of these two kingdoms, and the kingdom of the draconian reptilians, aka satanic hierarchy, that lives with us on this planet, and they live on the moon and in other planets in this solar system. Because when we went to the moon, Apollo 11, I mean, William Tompkins, his testimony as a whistleblower, people need to listen to what he has to say.
Yeah.
You've heard him, right?
Oh, yeah.
And how when he landed on the moon, not only did they were greeted by these ships, but next to the ships were these 9-foot lizard men. Okay, and I mean, how intimidating could that have been?
Oh, yeah.
Astronauts. So, and then, and people deny that we even went there. And that's all part of the cover up. That was fine because they didn't want people to know what happened. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a very real situation we're in. And yes, it does qualify as a threat, which is the reason, in my opinion, that they've been building a secret space program for the past 75 years, because they know that they have to somehow protect the Earth.
Exactly. I feel the same way. We've got a question. Why is there a human hybrid program, and is it to take over our world?
Well, that is the $1 million question. That is, I kind of believe that this is what I was told when I was sort of extricating myself from it, is that these hybrids that are being raised either underground, off planet, or on the ships are being prepared to replace humans. And this is the ultimate replacement theology, okay? And they're trying to do this already with implanting, why people get abducted and put back. I mean, that has to be a conversation in and of itself, because abduction connotates kidnapping, okay? But when people get kidnapped, they get taken away, and they don't usually get put back. But during alien abductions, people are put back. So what is that about? Besides extracting and harvesting our pieces of us, okay, so that they can use it for hybrids and this and that, they're also implanting humans to be put back into society with very specific programming to change our culture, to change our society, to make it more into the world they want. Okay, so there's a conflict going on, not just between, God and Satan, but between these races of beings that are fighting over their place on this planet. This is a very special planet. It has 11 dimensions. We live in one of them, the third dimension. And the books of Enoch talk about the 10 heavens. And I thought this was interesting. I sort of connected this dot to Michio Kaku's revelation or discovery that there are 11 dimensions. And Enoch said there are 10 heavens. So maybe heaven and dimensions could be like similar terms, because the Bible talks about the dimensions inside the earth, that there's 3 levels of hell. They're all inside the earth. There's also paradise and heaven and what they call Abraham's bosom, also inside the earth. And there's a story in the book of Luke that actually shows that Lazarus, who was this beggar, and he dies and he goes to Abraham's bosom. And then this rich man who wasn't very kind to him while he was on the earth ends up in hell. And he sees him, but they can't touch each other. They can't talk to each other, and they're separated by a chasm. Okay, so that reveals that there's these dimensional doorways coexisting on Earth, in Earth, under us. And even Henry Thoreau said,
Yeah.
heaven is just not only above us, it's under us as well. And this also coincides to the scripture of what a lot of Christians believe is going to be the rapture, where the Second Thessalonians says, oh, and the dead in Christ shall be raised first. Raised where? Out of the grave. They're in the earth. Heaven, if they're going to heaven, they're in the earth. They come out of the earth and they meet the Lord in the air. So people think in their minds, oh, when somebody dies, they go to heaven, which is above us, because the word heaven in Hebrew, Shemayim, is the same word for sky. But if we're using heaven as like paradise and like the good place, it's inside the earth. So the earth has all these different dimensions to it, as well as the fact that in the last galactic war, these beings escaped the flood. They were set to be destroyed. Some of them were. Some of them, according to the books of Enoch and Jasher and Jubilees, they were put into prisons. They were put into prisons in the fifth dimension. They were put into prisons in the abyss in the earth. And then the rest of them escaped through caverns. So that's why we're still seeing them. I have a chapter in book 4, which is about UFOs in Israel, that I was given permission to use from one of Israel's leading researchers, Barry Hamish, who passed away now. But he had all these stories of modern day Israel, okay, back in the 90s, where people were seeing giants. They were, and they were disappearing. They would just appear and disappear. Like there was no ships involved. They were coming and going, in my opinion, through portals. And the earth is full of portals. So these beings are been coexisting with us. And that's not to say that just because they're inside the earth, that they're all in the same grouping, or they're all on the same page, or they're all part of the same kingdom. Because just like us, how we, everybody wrestles here for different powers and this and that on the planet, the same thing's going on there. Which is why I can't get on board with all the Christians when they say all aliens are demons. Because why did God let them live? If not to maybe give them another chance to redeem themselves from what happened in the last galactic war. And these are the ones that are coming to the surface, not the ones that are been put in the prison. Because the ones that are in the prisons are there until the angels let them out to punish the earth. So these are the ones that people are seeing coming and going. So I don't know. It's a mixed bag. There's so many things going on here. It's so hard to say, well, it's this and it's that, and it can't be all this and it can't be all that, because that's just a form of bigotry. Don't you think?
Yeah. And it's very narrow-minded as well. You have to have an open mind because, like you said earlier, there are good humans and there are bad humans, and there are probably good and bad extraterrestrials and interdimensional beings that may not be extraterrestrial, but they're here with us, using our same space. And I wonder too, it seems to me, I've been investigator for over 40 years. And in that time, I have never seen as much activity as lately. I'm talking about UFO sightings and close encounters and ETs in people's houses. And they're seeing more, and also portal openings and things coming in and out, strange creatures coming in and out of portals, and also these weird cryptid creatures that people are seeing a lot of, which I've been kind of specializing in because there are so many. What do you think the reason for that is? Are we moving into another dimension? Are we becoming more awake as a society? Or is this stuff coming to us?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's because we're coming to the end of this age, the processional age. And Yeshua said he was returning at the end of the age. He didn't say he was coming back in the next age. He said he was coming back at the end of this age. And everyone is feeling it. The scripture says all of creation moans and groans for the redemption of the Lord. And even these creatures, okay, because however they got that way, through experiments, through, not following the laws of creation, they're there. Okay, we can't deny their existence or their reality. And just like the creatures that live on the surface of the planet with us as well, okay, the animals, the birds, the trees, everything is waiting for the redemption of this curse that the whole planet was put under, okay, in the last galactic war, okay, evidenced in the book of Genesis. So I think everyone is coming up because it's the apocalypse, which is just Greek for revelation and disclosure. And even the End Time Prophecy says that knowledge will increase right before the Lord returns at the end times. And everything you just said fits right into that. And this is what I try to tell Christians, to not be so narrow-minded about all this and all that. It's like, if you're under grace, okay, the dispensation of grace, and everybody is living under grace, and we are all saved behind enemy lines, then who are we to judge another extra-dimensional, interdimensional, extraterrestrial or creature? That's God's job to do that judgment. And some of these beings yearn for redemption. Okay, and I really feel that we need to sort of, everyone talks about expanding consciousness, and we need to expand consciousness to have understanding of one of the biggest problems on our planet is racism. That's kept everyone in division, everyone in wars, everyone separated. And who benefits from all of that? The answer is the Draco-reptilian beings live off of our loosh, which is emotional soul energy. And if we can keep everyone divided, okay, and mad at each other and judging each other, then they're harvesting all kinds of loosh. And this whole thing ends in a big war, okay? But the hope is that the Lord promises that he has come to restore all of creation. Not parts of it, not just the humans, not just the this or the that, all of creation. And I say to the Christians, well, what part of all don't you understand? So that means that there is an opportunity for some of these beings to have redemption, because they've been held captive, they've been under the curse, they've been messed with as well. And that's why we see the cryptids and these different types of creatures, because they're evidence of these Nephilim experiments that have been going on. And it's one thing to look at this from a scholarship point of view, look at it, well, this is what happened in the past, and bring it forward to say, well, hey, this is happening now. This is not just the past. This is the present. And there's nothing new under the sun. So I think that we're in for a ride here. We got to keep our hearts open, our minds open, and stay close, keep our relationship with the Creator strong, and strengthen that.
Okay, well, that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for being my guest this evening, Ella. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And your books sound fascinating. So everybody go to her website, but we posted earlier, and get the books and read them and let me know what you think. Thanks so much, everyone. And we will see you here again next week.